Next on our agenda is a new evaluation program. Mr. Henshaw is going to get us up to date on how the new evaluation program is being used this year.
Just a quick update. As you're well aware, the evaluation system did change this year. You all approved those changes in the summer from our work with our committee. And just a reminder, these are the people that served on our evaluation review committee, and they continue to do that and will continue on through this year, addressing giving us feedback on what we're currently doing, but as well as some changes that actually come into play the next school year. I appreciate all their work, and some of it over the last 3 months has been more feedback by email, electronically, as opposed to always meeting. Last year we met several times to work through the new system. Quick reminder, these are the 7 essential principles that were part of the waiver. The state of Missouri, all evaluation systems for teachers have to meet these 7 standards starting next year. Number 4 is the one that goes into effect next year. The other 6 went into effect this year. So measures of growth of in student learning. I will say we've always used student data. That's nothing new, but it's a formal part of the agreement that it has to be placed into the evaluation system. So that's what the state of Missouri has agreed to follow in any evaluation system you use. Our evaluation system, we critique or evaluate our teachers in 6 performance areas. And when I say teachers, that includes all certified staff. Obviously, there's some adaptation for a librarian, but as opposed to a classroom teacher. But I'm not going to read those to you, but there's 6 areas of performance. Evaluations involve several tools there. That second bullet, walkthroughs, formal observations, where it's actually scheduled and it's pre-planned. But the walkthroughs can be 5 minutes, or they can be 15, 20, 30 minutes long on a walkthrough. It's just an unscheduled observation. Parent and student surveys, this district's used those surveys many years to get feedback on teacher and building level performance. Anecdotal information obviously is used, professional development plans and professional assistance plans, and then summatives. Teacher growth goal rubrics, if you recall, that was something that was discussed, and I showed you samples of those this year, and they've been in place where we're scoring teachers during those walkthroughs in 2 areas. One of the areas is student engagement, for example. And then student growth data, as I mentioned, formally will be in next year's evaluation process. And we actually we had about 17 teachers today, and our administrative staff went through a second round of training on student learning objectives and writing those to formalize that data collection and analysis of that and next year it will be required in for every staff member that they will need to, as part of their evaluation, show student growth, collect data, and show student growth in their area. Just to give you a glimpse of what administrators have been doing this year, number of evaluations as of the survey time. We did a survey in December. Our administrators had conducted 548 observations or evaluations from the beginning of school, basically. They did 203 just in January. Each of the evaluations included written feedback that's automatically sent to the teacher through Google Docs, and 94% of those have included verbal feedback, where an administrator sits down or meets 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and the timeline, how much time you spend, obviously is dictated on a little bit on how long the walkthrough took, how much time you spent in the classroom, and then obviously if there were any concerns, those conversations might be longer. But 94%, I think that speaks well for our administrators really trying to get in the classrooms. And that's a challenge that we put out there to them this year. This is feedback from our teaching staff. We sent a survey out at the time in December. 198 responded to it. 153 of those had been evaluated at least once with the new system. And you can see there I was pretty happy with our feedback. 93% had verbal feedback within 3 days from their administrator. 80% agreed or strongly agreed that the feedback promotes professional collaborative culture. We hope that that conversation is very productive, but the first thing you have to do is open up those lines of communication. And then 66% agreed or strongly agreed that the feedback helped them become more effective. And to be quite honest, I'm very happy with that because, you know, a lot of the conversations are, you're doing great. You know, I observed this and it was very positive, and you're already doing it, keep doing it. So those people you're not trying to change. You're not trying, you know, hopefully it makes them more effective if they feel like they're being complimented. But on the other hand, I thought that was a high response, that it actually has an effect on the classroom in a positive way. So we'll always hope that number gets a little higher, but for a first survey, I thought it was really a good number. Just wanted to mention the summative. The summative to come into compliance with what the state's asking us to do, and I've got the next shot will be a blow up of one area. This is our summative is in a Word document. Obviously, the more a principal were to type under the comments section, this would expand into 3 or 4 pages of material. We didn't change, as you recall. Our goal was to take what the state's asking us to do and put it into our process. The purpose of a summative is to take a picture just of how a teacher's overall performance is for a period of time. This part is new on the summative. It's to come into compliance. There's just a section that's called the professional continuum, and a principal will mark one of those 4 areas where he feels that teacher falls. Now, typically, I would think that if I was an experienced teacher in this district, I would prefer to find myself down in the lower 2 boxes. The lower right box, if you, and you can read these words. Once again, you can pick the words apart, but to be quite honest, this is just one more method for us to ensure that our administrator and teachers are having a great conversation about improvement and where we would like you to be. So that lower right box is talking about teachers who are not only leaders, quality teachers, but leaders in their classroom, in their building, in their district, in the profession, that people, their performance says that they're that type of teacher. So I think that's where every teacher would want to be. But you're not, in these 4 boxes, you're not, you don't just fall in a box because you've taught a number of years. This is talking about where does that supervisor see your performance as a whole. And this is part of the compliance issue with meeting the standards that DESE's put out for us. So our evaluation committee has seen this. The principals have all seen this. We've worked it over a little bit, and the wording really comes from DESE's model.
I like the emphasis on demonstrate. You got to be able to demonstrate. You can have the knowledge, but can you demonstrate and use that knowledge in the classroom? I like that word.
Well, and they're all positive. I
Yep.
mean, there's something.
Yeah, and back here on the page on the left, if there's concerns, they're specific to each area. So this didn't change. This has still got the comment, the narrative is what I would call it, by the administrator, what he or she has seen. You know, as far as planning organization, if there's concerns or a growth area that we want to mark and those type of things. So the overall process has not changed at all. But hopefully we're building a collaborative team that really gets to the point of teacher growth. And we're also going to focus on, next year it really comes into play, we focus on student growth in your classroom. So that's it, unless you have questions.
I think it's great that you're getting feedback from your teachers on this and getting their opinion about it, how it's working. That's great.
We'll send out another survey very similar to the last one. I didn't include all the questions we ask up here. The first question was, have you even been evaluated yet this year? Some people aren't on that cycle, and that was kind of interesting. Some teachers said, well, I'm not sure if I have, because they came through my room, but I didn't get a PDF. Well, if you didn't get a PDF, you weren't formally. Of course, we say we're all evaluated all the time. So even when nobody's punching something into
And each
it.
of the, as far as the growth, I'm thinking as a former art teacher, the art teacher's going to have to come up with their own
Correct.
way of showing the growth in the.
Correct. We had art teachers in this meeting today, and special education teachers, and physical education teachers are going to have to show growth
Music.
during their class. Here's the standards. Sometimes they're very defined. Maybe, English language arts. You have standards that are much better defined, but they will be developing what should students really take away from my class? And then how do I show that here's where they started, and they're going to set goals for those students based on pre-assessments, and then we're going to look at those post-assessments
Interesting.
and look to see. It's the state as a whole. This goes into effect next year, and to be quite honest, the presenter today from our South Central RPDC did a great job, and one of the comments she made was school districts across the state are all over the place as far as how far along they are on this path. So you'll hear the term SLO, Student Learning Objectives, more and more as we get into this growth model for students.
Thank you.
Anything else? We'll
Good.
give you another
Thank you.
update. May not be a formal one toward the end of the year, but we'll supply the survey data to you from the teaching staff.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly.